Hello, it's 8th of November 2021, episode 160 of the Notcast. Now, those of you that have seen other episodes will know that normally you can guess what I'm about to talk about by the t-shirt that I'm wearing. However, today I am wearing a hoax t-shirt because it's a Twilight Sad t-shirt and I am not talking about the Twilight Sad. Although, of course, obviously I will briefly give you a cheap thrill by copying the pose on the shirt. Today I'm going to be talking about So Was I Was of Beckenham, Mr. David Bowie, and his album Diamond Dogs that was released in 1974. Pretty amazing to think that this album is so old. On the other hand, all of David Bowie's albums are now at least 5 to 6 years old, if not older still. And last episode I talked about a visit to the Mound, the improbably and unfortunately named artefact in central London. That day we also went to the David Bowie pop-up store in Heddon Street, just opposite where the Ziggy Stardust plaque is. I'll give you a quick review of that. Then we're going to talk about this here LP. At the end of the episode, if I can be patient, I will tell you how much this LP costs from the David Bowie store. The David Bowie pop-up store is really just a very expensive shop to celebrate David Bowie's 75th birthday. Although I much preferred when they celebrated his 50th birthday by playing a show with David Bowie in London, which for some reason, 25 years later, still inexplicably unreleased. Anyone would think that the David Bowie estate couldn't be bothered to go and get the permissions to release that set as an official concert. Although there's surely money can be no object when you've got a lot of money in the bank. And talking of a lot of money, the David Bowie pop-up store is there to be able to sell you all your David Bowie needs, apart from possibly cheaper merchandise. It is quite expensive indeed. There are LPs, CDs, DVDs, t-shirts, posters, badges, stickers, hats, stylophones, bags, and in the basement a 360-degree surround sound mix of something from Space Oddity. I think they were playing Wide Eyed Boy from Free Cloud when I went in there. Thoroughly unimpressive. It's basically just a 5-1 setup. Not perhaps quite as disappointing as the Kraftwerk room at the Design Museum's exhibition on electronic dance music that was just playing a DVD or the Blu-ray of the catalogue on the largest television you can find. But almost as disappointing as that indeed. So at the end of the episode, if I remember, I will tell you how much this LP costs in the David Bowie pop-up store, which has, by the way, no exclusive music at all, and one exclusive unavailable anywhere else t-shirt. Frankly, bit of a rip-off. So we're going for the umpteenth of David Bowie's LPs. I've forgotten which number this is now, because there was the D-Ram, there was Space Oddity, Man Who Sold the World, Aladdin Sane, Ziggy Stardust, Pin-Ups, Hunky Dory. Well, I've lost about 8th, I'm going to say. It's about his 8th LP. And Diamond Dogs is the first post-fame David Bowie LP that there is, in terms of first genuinely post-fame, as opposed to Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, which was pre-fame Aladdin Sane, which was right in the middle of it. So this is the first LP that he released as a star, baby, on a star, as Prince said. Okay, so you can't really tell the story of Diamond Dogs without telling the story of another artist and another record, one that didn't come out until 1995. At the start of the recording for the Diamond Dogs album, David was still indulging his vision of himself as a star maker, and so therefore he started recording an album with an artist called Ava Sherry and the Astronettes, who later turned out to be the backing vocalists on his Diamond Dogs tour. And he recorded a number of songs, recorded a number of songs, effectively David Bowie songs, with Ava Cherry, who was his girlfriend, on vocals. Those 4 songs, which have been released, were released on an album called People from Bad Homes, which was abandoned halfway through and released in a somewhat incomplete form in 1995. And it was also later released as a Sessions album with a slightly reconfigured track listing in 2008. It contains a couple of extra songs written by David Bowie. But the 4 songs that were on People from Bad Homes are I Am a Laser, People from Bad Homes, Things to Do, and a track called I Am Divine. I Am Divine later turned up with a rewritten vocal and a different set of lyrics, as Somebody Up There Likes Me on the Young Americans album. I Am a Laser and People from Bad Homes and Things to Do didn't turn up anywhere else, though obviously David Bowie versions of those songs exist. We haven't heard them yet, apart from little fragments from recording sessions that have been uploaded by auctioneers that have copies of the session tapes and have sold them, which means that there are David Bowie songs that have only been heard by one person outside of the industry, and that is the person that won the auction. You can hear fragments of them on, I think it's the Omega Auctions YouTube site. So you can hear bits from the Sigma sessions, you can hear bits from the recording sessions for this. There's also a song called Shilling the Rubes, which was recorded during the Young Americans period, up to around about 1974, when David Bowie left the Main Man Management Unit. The boat is a fairly leaky boat in terms of letting outtakes out into the big bad world. People from Bad Homes, which was released in 1995, is not a great record. The 4 songs that are written by David Bowie, also produced by him, sound very much like David Bowie tracks that are left over from Young Americans, with a woman singing very clearly a guide vocal where David Bowie had put his lyric previously. As I've said before, one of the songs out of those 4, I Am Divine, turned up in a different form as Somebody Up There Likes Me. And then also the line People from Bad Homes was reused around about the Scary Monsters period, I believe, and was I'm a Laser, I think, was turned into one of the tracks off that as well, so Scream Like a Baby. So David never really let go of anything. If you don't have it, the Overcherry album is available on YouTube to listen to sample, and to decide that you don't want to buy it because it's not very good. The very same decision that David made when he decided not to continue investing time and money into the recording of the album. And the business affairs that David Bowie had at the time, let's just quickly check the logo on here. The Main Man organisation, there is their logo, were hemorrhaging money, and David was seemingly having all the money that he was generating disappearing into a company and into other people that had nothing to do with the creation of music, much like other bands and other artists that have been ripped off by their managers. When we talk about Young Americans, we talk about how David left Main Man and how those certain circumstances worked both for and against him. So there's a number of songs from Diamond Dogs which had earlier existences, which reminds me there is one downstairs that I need to go and get. I'll be back in a second. And here it is. So the first song from the Diamond Dog sessions that was recorded and has been released, not the first song released, is on the Sound and Vision box set. This is a fantastic bit of work. It's available as a 4 CD set now, which is considerably cheaper than this one, which comes in a special frosted case. The print is on the inside, by the way, so it doesn't scratch off. There is a track on here. It is on track 4, I believe, side disc 2. Maybe you can see that, 1984 / Dodo. And that was it says it's a previously unreleased track recorded in 1973. So one of the key and pivotal tracks on Diamond Dogs is 1984. And 1984 and Dodo were designed to work together as 2 parts of one whole, effectively both sides of the coin. During the recording of the album, David decided that 1984 was better on its own. Dodo was relegated out of the running. It later appeared as a separate track on the Ryko disc version of Diamond Dogs released in 1990. But it's a different recording to the version that's on the Sound of Vision box set. And there's also a track called Candidate, which is on here, which is not the same song as the song Candidate on the album itself. It's a different song, shares one line and the same title. So what you can see is that he was working very, very hard towards creating the finished product, being Diamond Dogs. So Diamond Dogs was had a number of working titles that David referred to when he was in his interviews, and I think, as he said in an interview in 2004, he lies to you professionally for a living and it is entertaining. So the 3 alternate titles he gave for the album before they were released were Tragic Moments, Revenge, and The Best Haircut I Ever Had, which was a joke, the last one, because he also said that the album The Best Haircut I Ever Had was a concept album about the quality of the sandwiches in Harrods. I don't think he was, strictly speaking, telling the truth. Instead, around about this time, he was very interested in staging um, a musical stage adaptation of George Orwell's 1984, which was blocked by George Orwell's widow. George Orwell's widow died in 1980, which meant that therefore the Eurythmics could then get their fingers all over 1984, and there could be the truly fantastic but utterly depressing film starring John Hurt, released in 1984 as well. And the 1984 film starring John Hurt was also the first time I ever saw, the first time I ever saw a woman naked, actually, on a television screen, because it was shown in my school. And I was a very sheltered child at an all-boys school, which isn't relevant, but I think that particular shot and that particular scene probably was the same induction for possibly millions of schoolboys in Britain in the 80s, because the film of 1984 was shown in British schools, because films were a way of making sure that books, which were boring, could become exciting by being filmed. So Diamond Dogs is effectively a failed and retooled version of David Bowie's 1984 The Musical, which, by the way, the last, 3 of the songs on side 2, We Are the Dead, 1984, and Big Brother, there, 3 songs together, effectively form almost a mini-suite of songs from the 1984 musical that never came to pass. So, album was released April 1974. It was recorded in a number of studios in late 1973 through to about February 1974. The reason it was recorded in a number of studios was because Main Man were very good at not paying their bills. And so David was running from studio to studio because his company weren't paying the bills. So waiting until he got evicted for not paying the bills, and then kind of taking the tapes with them. It's a shocking state of affairs that such chaotic financial mismanagement was allowed to happen. But it was the 70s, and David Bowie at the time apparently had a cocaine habit, which was quite big. Not possibly quite as big as Al Pacino's in Scarface, the film, not the making of the film, but pretty heroic nonetheless. Like Darth Vader, he's more cocaine than man, possibly. Who knows? Oh, yes, exactly. And then David Bowie was usurped by a young Jedi called Tin Machine that killed him and then resurrected him. Sorry, I didn't know where I was going with that one. So Diamond Dogs opens with Future Legend. Now, what I will tell you about Diamond Dogs is Diamond Dogs is very similar to Glass Spider or Never Let Me Down Again, apart from Never Let Me Down is basically Diamond Dogs with all the good bits stripped out. It's got all the weird and wacky concepts, the unusual ideas, the strange and unusual experimentation, but Never Let Me Down is a piece of shit. Diamond Dogs most definitely isn't. Diamond Dogs opens with Future Legend, which is a 1-minute kind of spoken word track by David over a weird and unusual backing as he talks about rats the size of cats and fleas the size of rats and this type of stuff in that half-baked voice that he sometimes did. Very similar to when he's talking about the glass spider on Never Let Me Down. Then we have a tiny fragment of all things in the world, a Faces live album called Coast to Coast. And that became the crowd noise that's used at the beginning of the Diamond Dogs title track, which you can just about hear Rod Stewart shout "Hey!" to the crowd in America in 1973. Ronnie Wood on guitar, by the way, at that point. And you can just about hear that before Diamond Dogs itself starts off. And Diamond Dogs is the first album, in fact the only album from David Bowie, where he plays all the guitar. So the lead, apart from I think one uncredited guitar solo, all the rhythm guitar is David Bowie on here. He keeps 2 drummers, Tony Newman and Ainsley Dunsbar, Herbie Flowers back on bass, and Mike Garson, who was, amongst many other things, one of David Bowie's secret weapons on piano, keyboards, and so on and so forth. And so we've got Diamond Dogs starts with the Diamond Dogs title track, which was released as a single. In an edited form, here is yet another version of the 7-inch without a picture sleeve on, which is, it says it's from the album Diamond Dogs, although something tells me this 7-inch version is edited to fit onto a 7-inch single because Diamond Dogs is 5 minutes 50 seconds. It's backed with Holy Holy, which it tells you is a Main Man production from 1974. I don't think that's strictly true. But here's the, as was the case, 7-inch singles at the time were often not sold in picture sleeves. These were just the same as anything really, mass-produced works of art where people wrote their names on the record, and the record was forgotten about a few years later until someone like me goes and buys it. So it starts with the Diamond Dogs title track, which I never saw Bowie perform live. I saw Beck perform it in 2001, but I didn't see Bowie perform it. And then it goes into a 3-song medley, which is effectively taking the similar approach from 1984 and Dodo, but this time with Sweet Thing, Candidate, and a reprise of Sweet Thing that effectively work together as almost a 9-minute suite of music in the middle of side one. Pretty ballsy, if I'm allowed to say so. I think initial versions of this album came on a gatefold. This is, if I remember correctly, a Green Label RCA International version from the 80s. As I've mentioned previously, I bought all my Bowie vinyl in the year 2003, 2004. People were literally leaving crates of this stuff outside their houses with words like "free, please take me." This was long before the vinyl revival happened, and you could go to MVE and you could get mint unplayed copies of these for like £3 in the basement of the Notting Hill store. Everything changed later on. This would now probably be considerably more expensive than £3. The original version was released as a gatefold. However, in order to save money for the budget price reissue on RCA International, the gatefold was instead replicated inside this kind of fold-out poster sleeve instead, which is bizarre. And yes, that does smell old. Effectively, what you can kind of see here as well also is a concept painting that was based upon the idea of a future world very similar to 1984, where the future is a nightmare that has just happened. And what an awful future we had behind us in the world of Diamond Dogs. It's a dystopian, futuristic nightmare where not vastly dissimilar to 1974. I dimly remember 1974, although I was approximately as high as a 10-inch single in 1974. And 1974 felt like brutalism made flesh. It was a difficult year. There was rationing for a couple of months. There was a 3-day week that was imposed with power cuts, so people were working 3-day weeks. Bin bags weren't being collected, tax went through the roof, there was an oil shortage, rationing was imposed, vinyl became much thinner because of the oil shortage. They could realise they could sell thinner versions of records and nobody would mind too much. 1974 wasn't exactly a huge barrel of laughs, and not only that, Pink Floyd had just released Dark Side of the Moon, and I think Yes's Tales of Topographic Oceans was just about to happen. We were deep inside the clutches of dirty, horrible prog rock. Peter Gabriel and Steve Hackett were still members of Gabriel. It was a dark time for humanity until punk came and swept everything away. And Diamond Dogs was, both a kind of like a legacy from the glam era, which had clearly died around about here, but also pointing towards the future and taking a leap from the concept albums that other bands were releasing at the same time. Even Kraftwerk was starting to do concept albums with Autobahn, records that were designed around a set of ideas or imagery. And so it says, for example, that this album was recorded at Olympic and Island Studios and Studio Lildolf in Hilversum in Holland, one of my favourite countries, although obviously haven't been able to go there for about 3 years thanks to COVID. And so we get to Rebel Rebel. Now this is the song that you will all know, Rebel Rebel being the single from the album. And somewhat surprisingly, I haven't got Rebel Rebel on 7-inch. Reason being is that it was released in the UK and it was quite popular. It was also re-released in America in, I think, May or June 1974. David Bowie went back into the studio, re-recorded parts of the song, added new percussion parts, new vocals and new guitars, and then they lost the master tape. So the version of Rebel Rebel, the US single mix that is on the Who Can I Be Now box set, is taken from a vinyl rip of Rebel Rebel. Pretty surprising, all things considered, but as I said, David Bowie operated in a fairly chaotic manner at the time. So Rebel Rebel was also re-recorded in 2003 for the Reality album and released in a remixed form in 2004 in a mashup with Never Get Old called, I think, Rebel Never Gets Old, which is a bizarre track and one that we'll pretend never happened because it's not particularly good. I mean, it's an interesting mashup, good B-side, but probably not worthy of being released as a single. So you flip over side 2, and you get Rock and Roll With Me, which sounds like a cover version, although it isn't. It's not. It's a Bowie original. And then you've got the 3 songs that form the kind of 1984 mini set of We Are the Dead, 1984, and Big Brother. We Are the Dead takes its line from the famous line in 1984 when Julia and Winston Smith are standing together in the apartment, listening to the woman hanging up washing and singing the songs from the Versificator. And she says, "We are the dead," and a voice comes out from the radio, "You are the dead," and all fucking hell breaks loose. To put it technically, and "We Are the Dead" is a powerful song. Somewhat strangely, it decided that they were going to make it the B-side of TVC15 when that was released, because RCA never missed a chance to put an old album track on a B-side. And then there's 1984, and 1984 is I think one of the best David Bowie songs. It's brilliant. It's got this lovely little kind of funky pattern in it there. The guitars, it really sounds a bit like someone's done a kind of like a cross between the theme from Shaft and Ziggy Stardust. So it's heavy amounts of kind of like funk and disco, and you can tell that David Bowie was listening to this stuff, but it isn't in any way a funk or a disco album at all. That comes with Young Americans. And obviously the 1984 track was retooled. It originally included a demo of Dodo inside it and was meant to have an extra song on, and then Dodo disappeared forever. And obviously Candidate was rewritten completely as well, so the demos of Candidate and Dodo that are on the Ryko disc versions are completely different songs to the version that's on Sound and Vision. And then it closes with one of the most unusually titled songs ever, The Chant of the Ever-Circling Skeletal Family, which, in the tradition of truly unusual B-sides and cover versions, the best cover version is that by The Wedding Present that was released in 1992 of The Chant of the Ever-Circling Skeletal Family. And so we got the album there, Diamond Dogs, originally released in a gatefold form. And for those of you that are particularly keen, David Bowie is here presented as some kind of man-dog hybrid. The early versions of the album, which are both now very much rarer and very much more expensive, do not feature airbrushing over that particular part of his anatomy. And in fact, if you open up the vinyl replica that's inside the Who Can I Be Now box set, which I will just do for you now, because I love you and you are special, we get the un-airbrushed version of the cover. So this is the vinyl replica of Diamond Dogs on CD, and there you can clearly see that bit is not shaded on the original LP, and there's the gatefold sleeve that goes inside it. The Who Can I Be Now releases also include, replica inner sleeves, but since the inner sleeve was only a blank piece of paper, it didn't really matter too much. So as I've said before, Rebel Rebel was the single, and it was quite successful in the UK, and it was also, as I said, remixed and re-recorded a little bit for release in America, and the American single mix is most readily available on Recall 2, the singles disc that comes with Who Can I Be Now. And as I said before, the song Rebel Rebel on the American single is considerably shorter. It's a couple of minutes shorter. It's got new percussion parts. It's got re-recorded vocals, re-recorded guitar, and the original copy has been lost to history of the original tape because it was recorded on a tour stop somewhere. And so there we have it. That is Diamond Dogs. I think it's a really great album, actually. It's one where everything started to gel together, I think, more than Ziggy Stardust and more than Aladdin Sane. And Ziggy Stardust and Aladdin Sane, of course, were songs which, to me, albums that felt very much like products of their time. Diamond Dogs is the first one where it really feels that David is operating in his own world, of his own making, his own existence, and nobody else is necessarily an influence. You can't hear the influence of people like T-Rex on that. You can hear bits of Isaac Hayes, you can hear bits of Shaft, you can hear bits of Soul, you can hear bits of all of those things, but somehow he made them all his own thing indeed. And the Who Can I Be Now set, by the way, features this book, which features an interview and a meeting between William Burroughs and David Bowie. And David used William Burroughs' technique, the cut-up technique of cutting out individual lines and then rearranging them and placing them in different arrangements to create some kind of weird and abstract version of reality. And We Are the Dead used the cut-up technique particularly, and some of the other songs feel like they do as well. And that's pretty exciting, really, I think. And there's some photographs. This is some of the lyrics, and there's the original lyrics to Rebel Rebel in the book, to Who Can I Be Now. And then we've got some of the alternate artwork. So we've got TV adverts and press adverts for things like Diamond Dogs. We've got some, information sheets, session tracks, photographs from the writing and recording of Diamond Dogs in the set, and it's all quite a good set. Who Can I Be Now? Obviously, we're all about the Brilliant Adventure set that's due to come out later on this month. Obviously, I'll be talking about that in due course as well. And we also get an essay by Chris Charlesworth around the recording of the album and the cultural effects that it's got with it. It's an interesting way of curating the reality that goes with it. Around about this time, David went on tour in America, and he played America 3 times, which resulted in, very, very surprisingly, by the way, I should point out, 3 separate, unique and distinct live albums. David Live, recorded at the Tower in Philadelphia on the 8th to 12th of July 1973. Cracked Actor, that was recorded on the 5th of September 1974. I think that was in LA. And then the 3rd live album from the tour, I'm Only Dancing, the Soul Tour 1974, which was recorded mostly on the 20th of October, with some extra songs recorded on the 30th of November as the tour progressed. David's been fairly honest about the live albums. Now, 2 of these, by the way, Cracked Actor was released in 2017. This was a Record Store Day release, and was edited, mixed and produced by Tony Visconti posthumously after David's death in late 2016, presumably from the tapes which were used originally for some of the film that features in the Cracked Actor documentary. So this is a 5-sided LP with a fantastic kind of like Bowie logo etching on side 6. I think these are really good live albums, by the way. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get them. You absolutely should. They are fantastic. And here is, hopefully you can see it there, the David Bowie logo etched into one, therefore redundant side of music. Well, it's a 5-sided triple LP that was sold for Record Store Day in 2017, and I must admit, I do not like the release strategies that they've had for these. It's knowing that you've got an artist as big as David Bowie, and then you put live albums out that are only available on vinyl in one pressing, that are sold on Record Store Day. Record Store Day doesn't have a sale or return policy, so the shop has to take a risk that you're going to buy it, and then you pay a fortune for it, and sometimes it's a pile of crap. Cracked Actor absolutely is not a pile of crap, by the way. And the 3rd live album that was released last year, 2020's Record Store Day, I'm Only Dancing, the Soul Tour. This is based upon the tour programme that was sold at the show. The show was the Detroit Michigan Palace, which I believe is in Auburn Hills, I think. Which was, I think, also possibly the same location that The Cure recorded 1992 show VHS and LP and CD at. This is a fantastic live album, but the problem that we have with both Cracked Actor and I'm Only Dancing are that they are recorded in between sessions for the next David Bowie LP, and the next David Bowie LP is Young Americans, so therefore Cracked Actor and I'm Only Dancing are effectively from the Young Americans tour before the Young Americans album came out, but when the Young Americans album was being recorded, often by the same musicians. And you've got a couple of songs from Young Americans on here, so you've got It's Gonna Be Me and John, I'm Only Dancing, which later was on an early version of the album, I think. And then on here, what you've got is you've got John, I'm Only Dancing, Young Americans, Can You Hear Me, It's Going to Be Me, Somebody Up There Likes Me. So a lot of songs from the Young Americans period. David was very, very prolific at this point, by the way. But the only live album that you got, and the first official live album released during David's lifetime, was David Live, recorded at the Tower, Philadelphia, on the 8th to the 12th of July 1974. And it tells you that this album was complete and exact. No studio overdubs or re-recording of voices, instruments, or audience have been added, with the exception of several backing vocals due to loss of theatre mic contact. Now, the perhaps more prosaic explanation is that the backing vocalists weren't doing a particularly great job because they were dancing their butts off during this, and that's why those have been re-recorded. Yes, technically speaking, they did lose audience mic contact because they were dancing nowhere near the mics, but that is not strictly the truth. They could have sung, they just weren't. So this was released as a double LP, what you can originally see here. This has got a sticker, which is, probably older than me on it, probably a price sticker. And again, this is one of the I think this might be an original, actually, because it's got the old-fashioned main man logo on there. It's also got a price code on it, in the same way that, you remember, greeting cards have price codes. They don't sell greetings cards or birthday cards by price, they sell them by code, and you have to so GG means this, but it's FF until the 1st of January 1975. I have no idea what that means. Presumably it became more expensive after the 1st of January 1975. And I'm going to quickly divert into Christmas presents, because I used to love getting W.H. Smith vouchers for my Christmas presents. The reason being is that W.H. Smith vouchers, my grandparents always got them for me. It always meant I could buy records. They thought I was buying books, but they never needed me to show them the books. So I told them books that I bought, which I hadn't actually bought, and instead I went downstairs into the basement of W.H. Smith using my W.H. Smith book voucher to buy albums from the W.H. Smith record store. So W.H. Smith book vouchers were responsible for at least 3 or 4 albums a year of my collection. It was great news getting them, because effectively I was getting records. So David Live, gatefold sleeve, some truly terrible photos that in no way, shape or form kind of explain how big this stage set was. So the stage set that we had for this period was absolutely enormous. Apparently it cost $400,000 to make. It took dozens of trucks and it cost an absolute fortune, and it was kind of like a version of the 1984 musical, but this time clearly just adapted from that. And we've got the live band for this period, which features Herbie Back Flowers, again reprising his bass appearance, and we've got Earl Slick on guitars. I think that's Earl Slick's first appearance. We've got Tony Newman on drums, who plays drums on the Diamond Dogs album, Mike Garson on piano, and then we've got sax, flute, percussion. I think we've got in total a 10-man band alongside David. No wonder he was running out of money, because session musicians aren't cheap. So there's David Live. Now David Live was remixed in 2005 and it was represented, and so on Who Can I Be Now we have the David Live original version, which has a different track listing. Again, that looks very familiar. And then we have the 2005 version, which features an alternate photograph, which has been slightly different, presented, reproduced and turned inside out. Again, we've got a photograph of David, but it's reversed, so you've got no idea which one was really the case. And then you've got the gatefold sleeve inside there in Who Can I Be Now. And then you've got some alternate pictures here of David, and that of course is clearly almost like a flashback to his early years, when he was kind of trying frantically to get some kind of commercial success with fame and mime and all those type of things. Right, David Live did bring us a number of other releases, by the way. It brought us a live single, Knock on Wood, which, if you don't know what Knock on Wood is, it's that song that is about thunder, lightning, very, very frightening indeed. You all know the song, you've heard the song. It's a song that's part of the human lexicon in much the same way as Fairy Leaves or Ode to Joy is. You all know this song. And Knock on Wood was taken from the live album and released as a single, backed with a non-album track, Panic in Detroit, recorded live on tour. and again produced by Tony Visconti. There was also, and this is quite an interesting little release, there was a flexi disc, and here is a David Bowie flexi disc, which was, I think, attached free to a newspaper. Record Mirror Pop Swap, presented free in 1974, and this features live excerpts from Knock on Wood, Space Oddity, The Man Who Sold the World, Life on Mars, Starman, Gene Genie, Sorrow, and Diamond Dogs, and 33 RPM flexi disc. So that's not especially rare, because I think Record Mirror sold a lot of copies, but not commercially released as a single in its own right, but it was an interesting little curiosity to have. And then we have the reissue of Space Oddity, which came out in 1975 to promote the Changes album, and that has an unreleased track on it, Velvet Goldmine, as the second B-side. Now the CDs that we had from this period, this is the Ryko disc version of Diamond Dogs. As I can previously point out to you, the Ryko disc version of Diamond Dogs does not have the airbrush cover. It also has a fold out, but sadly my copy was water damaged, not by me, I should point out, and so therefore I can't fold out and show you the poster that we have. I really love the Ryko disc versions. If you're going to get into Bowie and you don't know where you're going to go, get those box sets, get the Ryko disc versions, and you'll have a lot of extra material. David Live was finally given a CD release in 2005. This is a version which was remixed and represented and reproduced by Tony Visconti. Panic in Detroit has been added back into the set, as indeed is a couple of other tracks as well. So it's the full show as opposed to a highlights version of the show that's presented on the LP from 1974. And finally, Cracked Actor and I'm Only Dancing got CD releases a number of weeks after their Record Store Day debuts. And these are, again, essential, brilliant live albums. Baffling why they weren't released, but at the same point, fairly obvious they weren't released, because the having one live album from a tour seemed pretty excessive, let alone having three, even though there were three different tours with substantially different set lists. So for example, I think Cracked Actor has It's Gonna Be Me and John I'm Only Dancing on it. David Live specifically features Watch That Man, Here Today, Gone Tomorrow, Panic in Detroit, and Width of a Circle, which isn't on any of the other live albums from the period. And then the Soul Tour features Sorrow, Love Me Do and Gene Genie, Young Americans, Can You Hear Me, It's Gonna Be Me, and Somebody Up Here Likes Me, which were again not on any of the other of the live albums. And David joked, although how much of it was a joke is uncertain, that David Live should actually be called David Bowie is Alive and Well and Living Only in Theory, because of his, again, heroic amount of drug consumption at the time. If you want to see an example of how bad that may have been, the Cracked Actor documentary, which was shot by Alan Yentop and broadcast on British television and has not yet been officially released and possibly won't ever be, features excerpts from the live show of this tour. It also features excerpts of a clearly tripping off his tits David Bowie in the back of a car, being very, very paranoid indeed. If you ever wanted an advert for why drugs are bad, just watch Cracked Actor and go, there, by the grace of God, go I. That is David Bowie's Diamond Dogs. And what I haven't yet told you is how much Diamond Dogs cost from the record shop. Where did I put the LP? It's over here. So, I've kept you in suspense long enough. If you go to the David Bowie pop-up store, Heddon Street, and you want to buy a copy of Diamond Dogs on LP, this will cost you £42.99. Yep, that's an absurd price. £42.99 for one vinyl LP, because you're buying it from the David Bowie store. There's not even any exclusive David Bowie vinyl. You can get everything that's been, pressed and is available at the moment from there. And yet for some reason you can't get Outside, you can't get Earthling, you can't get Butter of Suburbia, you can't get Black Tie White Noise, you can't get Hours, you can't get Live in Berlin. There's loads of David Bowie LPs that should be in press, which haven't been in press since before David Bowie died. And before he died, they were released in limited edition coloured vinyls of 500 or 1,000 and sold out in a morning. It's bloody ridiculous. Stop fucking us about. Sell us records that we want to buy at decent prices. Because in the end, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to buy them eventually when they become cheaper. And I'm not going to pay big money to the people for copies now. Anyway, Diamond Dogs is, I think, David Bowie's 8th album. I could be wrong. It's either his 7th or his 8th. It is a huge leap forward from Pin-Ups. It's what I think the first album where David Bowie kind of steps out of the shadow of his influences and becomes very much his own man. And from here on in, I am up to my neck in David Bowie all the way through. I don't say I love it all, but the earlier stuff up to Aladdin saying I like, and I know that it's really, really good, but at the same point, it's not good for me. Yeah, I know that the band are really excellent. The songs are brilliant. I think that that you can really tell that they're playing an incredible job. A really good band, but it's not really my type of thing. From Diamond Dogs onwards, with the exception of Tonight and Let's Dance and Never Let Me Down, I think it's all pretty damn great from here on in, all the way through to the end. Apart from Tonight. It's pretty damn something, but great is not the word to describe Tonight. Also, by the way, there is a connection between the Ava Cherry record, which features a cover version of God Only Knows by the Beach Boys, which was later covered by David himself on the Tonight album in 1984. And 1984, since David played no live appearances apart from maybe an appearance with Tina Turner at the Birmingham NEC, didn't make any live appearances in 1984. 1984 was never sung by David Bowie in the year 1984. Which is, again, perhaps that would have been the obvious choice to do that, but since when has David Bowie ever been obvious? He's always been a little bit weird. And after all, you're going to paint yourself as some weird kind of man dog on the front of an album. You can pretty much be convinced you're not dealing with your regular pop stars here. You didn't like me when I was me, so I came back as somebody else. So there we have it. Right, that wraps up today. Chat about David Bowie, Diamond Dogs. Next time I talk about him, I'm going to be talking about the albums Young Americans and The Gouster. And also, I'm probably going to be talking a little bit again about the Young American albums, or Young American tour records, before the Young Americans came out, Cracked Actor, and I Am Only Dancing, the Soul Tour. In the meantime, stay beautiful, look after yourselves. And I also point out that a lot of you did seem to like my video where I did the tour of the mound and was basically bitchy about a building. If you want more of that, that's absolutely fine. Just let me know in the comments. I will post a link to Cracked Actor, the documentary, in the comments as well, so you can see for yourself how truly terrible drugs are, or at least how truly terrible they were in 1974. In the meantime, stay beautiful, and I'll smell you later. Thank you. Bye.